Captain Marcus Ghost Rodriguez had spent 18 years perfecting the art of invisible warfare. His withered hands moved across the Barrett M82 sniper rifle with the same precision a surgeon used with a scalpel. The Afghan mountains stretched endlessly before him, their rocky peaks cutting sharp silhouettes against the pre-dawn sky. Somewhere in the valley below, a terrorist cell was planning an attack that would change the course of modern warfare forever. The intelligence had come through 3 days ago. A rogue scientist named Dr. Yusuf Hassan had developed a new type of explosive device using quantum technology. The weapon could level entire city blocks without leaving traditional explosive residue. Hassan had sold this technology to al-Zarqawi's network, and tonight they were moving the prototype to a secure facility in Kandahar. Rodriguez adjusted his scope, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Behind him, his team of 8 elite Navy SEALs waited in perfect silence. Each man had been hand-picked for this mission. The stakes couldn't be higher. "Ghost, this is Overwatch," came the voice through his earpiece. "Target convoy approaching checkpoint Alpha. 3 vehicles, black SUVs. Hassan should be in the middle vehicle." Rodriguez's finger found the trigger. 23 years of military service had led to this moment. His childhood in East Los Angeles seemed like another lifetime. Back then, he'd been just another kid dodging bullets on street corners, watching his older brother Luis get sucked into gang life. The military had saved him, given him purpose, turned his survival instincts into something noble. "I have visual on the convoy," Rodriguez whispered into his microphone. The vehicles moved slowly along the winding mountain road, their headlights cutting through the darkness like yellow knives. Inside one of those SUVs sat a man whose invention could kill millions. The first vehicle passed the designated kill zone. Rodriguez's breathing slowed to match his heartbeat. In sniper school, they'd taught him that the space between heartbeats was when the shot became perfect. The human body was a machine, and, like any machine, it had rhythms that could be exploited. His spotter, Sergeant Tommy Eagle Morrison, lay beside him with high-powered binoculars. Morrison had grown up on a ranch in Montana, where shooting prairie dogs at 500 yards was considered child's play. Together, they'd made impossible shots in Iraq, Somalia, and Afghanistan. Their partnership had been forged in blood and tested in fire. "Wind speed 2 knots from the southeast," Morrison whispered. "Range 847 meters. Target vehicle maintaining steady speed." Rodriguez made minute adjustments to his scope. The middle SUV was now entering the kill zone. Through his crosshairs, he could see the silhouette of the driver, the passenger in the front seat, and the shadowy figures in the back. One of those shadows was Dr. Hassan. The intelligence report flashed through his mind. Hassan had worked for the Pakistani nuclear program before disappearing 2 years ago. His quantum explosive technology represented a leap forward in weapons development that could tip the balance of power in the region. The prototype device, no larger than a briefcase, could generate an explosion equivalent to a small nuclear weapon without the radiation. "Ghost, be advised," Overwatch's voice crackled through the radio. "We're getting chatter about possible civilian presence in the target area. Can you confirm?" Rodriguez swept his scope across the valley. The road was empty except for the convoy. No shepherds, no late-night travelers, no innocent bystanders who might get caught in the crossfire. This was exactly why they'd chosen this location, this time of night. The mission planners had spent weeks studying traffic patterns, local customs, prayer schedules. Everything had been calculated to minimize collateral damage. "Negative on civilian presence," Rodriguez reported. "Target area is clean." The middle SUV was now directly in his crosshairs. Rodriguez could see Dr. Hassan clearly now, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses sitting in the back seat, clutching a metal briefcase. The briefcase that contained the future of warfare. Rodriguez's mind drifted for a split second to his daughter Sophia, sleeping peacefully in their home in Virginia Beach. She was 7 years old, obsessed with butterflies and convinced that her daddy was the strongest man in the world. She had no idea that her father's job sometimes required him to make decisions that would echo through history. "Range confirmed at 847 meters, Morrison said. "Target is stable. You have the shot." The mission had been planned for months. Intelligence agencies from 3 countries had worked together to track Hassan's movements. The quantum explosive technology couldn't be allowed to proliferate. Too many terrorist organizations were already trying to acquire it. If Hassan reached his destination, the technology would be reverse-engineered and mass-produced within months. Rodriguez's finger tightened on the trigger. One shot. One moment. One decision that would prevent thousands of deaths. But something felt wrong. The convoy's movement pattern had changed slightly. The lead vehicle was slowing down, and the middle SUV was beginning to brake. Rodriguez's instincts, honed by decades of combat, screamed danger. "Eagle, do you see movement in the lead vehicle?" Morrison adjusted his binoculars. "Affirmative. I'm seeing multiple figures. Looks like they're dismounting." Suddenly, the night exploded into chaos. Muzzle flashes erupted from the lead SUV as armed men poured out, taking defensive positions behind the vehicles. Tracer rounds began streaking across the valley, searching for the sniper's position. "We're compromised," Morrison hissed. "They knew we were here." Rodriguez kept his crosshairs locked on the middle SUV. Through his scope, he could see Hassan being rushed from the vehicle by armed guards. The briefcase remained clutched in his hands. In seconds, he would disappear into the rocky terrain, taking his devastating technology with him. The sound of approaching helicopters filled the air. Not American helicopters, Rodriguez could tell by the rotor signature. These were Russian-made Mi-24 Hinds, probably provided by Hassan's sponsors. The trap was closing around them. "Ghost, this is team leader," came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Jake Reaper Sullivan through the radio. "We need to extract immediately. Multiple hostiles converging on our position." Rodriguez's team was already moving, gathering their equipment and preparing to fall back to the extraction point. But Hassan was still in his crosshairs, still carrying the briefcase that could change everything. The terrorist guards were herding Hassan toward a narrow canyon that led deeper into the mountains. Once he disappeared into those rocks, they'd never find him again. The quantum explosive technology would vanish into the terrorist underground, emerging months or years later in the form of devastating attacks on innocent civilians. Rodriguez's finger found the trigger again. The shot was becoming more difficult as Hassan moved between the rocky outcroppings, but it was still possible. Just barely possible. "Ghost, we need to move now." Morrison was already packing up his spotting equipment. "Those choppers will be on us in 2 minutes." Through his scope, Rodriguez could see Hassan stumbling over the rocky ground, his guards pushing him toward safety. The briefcase bounced in his hands with each step. In a few more seconds, he would be beyond even Rodriguez's exceptional range. The weight of the decision pressed down on Rodriguez like a physical force. Take the shot and risk exposing his team's position further, or let Hassan escape and live with the knowledge that thousands might die because of his hesitation. Rodriguez's breathing steadied. His heartbeat slowed. The space between beats opened up like a doorway to eternity. His finger began to squeeze the trigger, taking up the slack with mechanical precision. But then, Hassan stumbled and fell behind a large boulder. The shot was gone. Moving. Rodriguez grabbed his rifle and followed his team toward the extraction point. The sound of the helicopters was getting louder, and small arms fire was beginning to bracket their position. They had maybe 90 seconds before the enemy forces would overrun their location. As they moved through the darkness, Rodriguez's mind raced through the implications of what had just happened. Hassan was gone, along with his quantum explosive technology. The mission was a failure. But something about the entire situation felt orchestrated, as if they'd been led into an ambush. The extraction helicopter appeared over the ridge, its rotors beating against the thin mountain air. Rodriguez and his team reached the pickup zone just as enemy forces began closing in from multiple directions. They climbed aboard the helicopter as bullets whined past their heads. As the aircraft lifted off and banked away from the mountain, Rodriguez stared back at the convoy below. The vehicles were already gone, disappeared into the maze of canyons and valleys that honeycombed the Afghan landscape. Hassan had vanished like smoke. But Rodriguez had memorized every detail of what he'd seen through his scope. Hassan's face, his mannerisms, the way he clutched the briefcase, the make and model of the vehicles, the tactical positions taken by his guards. Everything was burned into his memory with photographic precision. "Don't worry, Ghost," Morrison said, settling into the seat beside him. "We'll get another shot at him." Rodriguez nodded, but his mind was already working through the larger implications. How had Hassan known they were coming? Who had compromised the mission? And, most importantly, where would Hassan surface next? The helicopter flew through the night sky, carrying Rodriguez and his team back to their forward operating base. But Rodriguez knew this was far from over. Hassan and his quantum explosive technology represented a threat that went beyond any single terrorist attack. This was about the future of warfare itself. As the aircraft descended toward the base, Rodriguez made a silent promise. He would find Hassan again. He would complete the mission. And, next time, he wouldn't hesitate when the moment came to pull the trigger. The helicopter touched down on the landing pad, its rotors gradually slowing to a stop. Rodriguez and his team climbed out and walked toward the debriefing room, where intelligence officers would want to know every detail of what had gone wrong. But Rodriguez was already thinking about what would go right next time. Because there would be a next time. Men like Hassan didn't simply disappear. They surfaced again, usually when the stakes were even higher. The mountain wind whipped across the base, carrying with it the scent of dust and diesel fuel and something else, the metallic tang of missed opportunities. Rodriguez had been so close to ending the threat permanently. One trigger pull away from preventing a catastrophe that could reshape the global balance of power. As he walked toward the debriefing room, Rodriguez's satellite phone buzzed with an encrypted message. He glanced at the screen and felt his blood turn cold. The message was brief, just 3 words that changed everything: Hassan is alive. 3 weeks after the failed mission in Afghanistan, Captain Rodriguez found himself in a windowless briefing room beneath the Pentagon. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the faces of the intelligence officers seated around the polished conference table. On the wall-mounted screen, satellite images rotated slowly, showing Hassan's suspected locations across 3 different countries. "Gentlemen," said Director Sarah Chen, the CIA's Deputy Director of Operations, "Dr. Hassan has been busy since his escape. Our sources indicate he's completed field testing of the quantum explosive device. The results exceeded even his own projections." Rodriguez studied the photographs spread across the table. Hassan looked different now, cleaner, more confident. Gone was the nervous scientist clutching a briefcase in the Afghan mountains. This version of Hassan wore expensive suits and met with high-level government officials in luxury hotels. "Where did he test it?" asked Lieutenant Commander Sullivan, Rodriguez's team leader. Chen clicked to the next slide. The image showed a massive crater in what appeared to be empty desert. The crater was perfectly circular, its edges glass-smooth from the intense heat. No debris scattered around the perimeter, no typical explosive damage pattern. Just a flawless sphere of destruction carved into the earth. This was a remote area of the Sahara Desert, approximately 400 kilometers south of Tripoli, Chen continued. The device created a blast equivalent to 5 kilotons of TNT, but with zero radiation signature. Our analysis suggests the explosion achieved complete molecular disintegration within a 200-meter radius. Rodriguez leaned forward, studying the crater's dimensions. 5 kilotons was small by nuclear standards, but devastating for a conventional weapon. More importantly, the lack of radiation meant the device could be used in urban areas without long-term contamination. A weapon like that could level city blocks and leave them habitable within hours. "How are we sure Hassan was responsible?" Morrison asked. Chen pulled up another image, a grainy photograph taken from a surveillance satellite. It showed Hassan standing at the edge of the crater, holding what appeared to be a tablet computer. His expression was one of satisfaction, like an artist admiring his masterpiece. "We intercepted communications between Hassan and his financial backers immediately after the test," Chen explained. "He's demanding $50 million for the complete technical specifications." The bidding war has already begun. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. $50 million was pocket change for most state sponsors of terrorism. Within months, quantum explosive devices could be in the hands of every major terrorist organization in the world. Who's bidding? Rodriguez asked. The usual suspects. North Korea, Iran, several unnamed Russian oligarchs, and at least 3 terrorist organizations we've identified. But there's a new player that has us concerned, a private military contractor called Apex Solutions. Rodriguez had heard whispers about Apex Solutions during his deployments. They operated in the gray areas between government and private sector, taking on missions that official military forces couldn't touch. Their personnel were all former special operations soldiers, and their equipment was often more advanced than what regular military units carried. Why would a PMC want quantum explosives? Sullivan wondered. Because they're not just a PMC anymore, Chen replied. Our intelligence suggests Apex Solutions has evolved into something much more dangerous. They're essentially a private army for hire, with clients ranging from multinational corporations to foreign governments. A weapon like Hassan's would give them a significant tactical advantage. She clicked to the next slide, showing an organizational chart with photographs of key Apex personnel. At the top was a man Rodriguez recognized immediately, Colonel Marcus Webb, his former commanding officer from the Rangers. Webb had been cashiered from the Army 5 years ago following allegations of war crimes in Iraq. The charges were never proven, but Webb's career was effectively over. Webb's running Apex now, Chen continued. He's recruited heavily from disillusioned special operations veterans. Men who feel abandoned by their governments, who think they can do the job better without bureaucratic oversight. Rodriguez stared at Webb's photograph. The man had been a mentor during Rodriguez's early years in special operations, teaching him advanced marksmanship and small unit tactics. But Webb had always walked the line between mission accomplishment and excessive force. Apparently, he'd finally crossed it completely. What's our mission? Rodriguez asked, though he already knew the answer. Chen's expression hardened. Hassan is scheduled to meet with potential buyers in Monaco next week. High-security private auction, invitation only. We need you to infiltrate the event and eliminate both Hassan and his research data before the sale can be completed. She slid a thick folder across the table to Rodriguez. Your cover identity is established, you'll be representing a private arms dealer from South Africa. The buyer persona has been building credibility for 6 months. Hassan doesn't know your face, so the cover should hold. Rodriguez opened the folder and studied his new identity. Johannes van der Merwe, arms dealer specializing in exotic weapons for private military contractors. The background was detailed and convincing, complete with financial records, personal history, and references from previous clients. What about backup? Morrison asked. You'll be going in alone, Chen replied. The venue has too much security for a full team insertion. But we'll have assets in place for extraction once the mission is complete. Rodriguez nodded, though he didn't like the sound of assets in place. In his experience, that usually meant local intelligence operatives with questionable reliability. Still, the mission was too important to let personal preferences interfere. There's one more complication, Chen added, clicking to a new slide. Webb will also be attending the auction. Apex Solutions is apparently Hassan's most serious bidder. We believe Webb is planning to acquire the quantum explosive technology for a specific client, though we don't know who yet. The photograph showed Webb at a charity gala in Dubai, looking prosperous and confident in an expensive tuxedo. He'd gained weight since leaving the army, but his eyes still held the predatory intelligence that had made him such an effective soldier. Rules of engagement? Rodriguez asked. Eliminate Hassan and destroy all research data. Webb is secondary priority, take him out if the opportunity presents itself, but don't compromise the primary mission. The quantum explosive technology cannot be allowed to proliferate. Rodriguez studied the mission parameters. Monaco was a challenging operational environment, high security, sophisticated surveillance systems, and innocent civilians everywhere. One mistake could turn the mission into an international incident. What about Hassan's security? Sullivan asked. Chen pulled up surveillance footage from Hassan's hotel in Dubai. The scientist was accompanied by a four-man protection detail, all former military contractors armed with the latest weapons and equipment. They moved with the professional precision of experienced operators. Hassan's gotten smarter since Afghanistan, Chen observed. His security team includes 2 former SAS operators and a Russian Spetsnaz veteran. They know their business. Rodriguez watched the footage carefully, memorizing faces and movement patterns. The protection detail was good, but they were protecting Hassan against conventional threats. They wouldn't be expecting a lone operator with Rodriguez's specific skill set. Timeline? Rodriguez asked. Wheels up in 18 hours. The auction is scheduled for 2,100 hours local time, 3 days from now. You'll have time to scout the venue and establish your cover before Hassan arrives. Rodriguez closed the folder and stood up. 3 days to prepare for a mission that could determine the future of global terrorism. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure wasn't an option. As the briefing concluded, Chen pulled Rodriguez aside. Ghost, there's something else you need to know. Our sources indicate Hassan isn't just selling the weapon specifications. He's also planning to demonstrate the device's capabilities to potential buyers. Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. Demonstrate how? We're not sure yet, but Hassan has been asking about population density maps for major European cities. Monaco itself has over 30,000 residents packed into less than 1 square mile. If Hassan decides to provide a live demonstration. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Rodriguez understood the implications perfectly. Hassan wasn't just planning to sell a weapon, he was planning to use Monaco as a testing ground, with thousands of innocent people as potential casualties. Any idea what his target might be? Rodriguez asked. The auction is being held at the Casino de Monte Carlo. 500 of the world's wealthiest arms dealers, government officials, and private military contractors will be in attendance. If Hassan wanted to make a statement about the power of his weapon, he couldn't ask for a better target. Rodriguez nodded grimly. The mission had just become exponentially more complicated. He wasn't just trying to stop an arms deal, he was trying to prevent a massacre that would redefine terrorism for the 21st century. As he left the Pentagon and drove toward his base housing, Rodriguez's mind raced through tactical scenarios. The Casino de Monte Carlo was a fortress-like building with multiple security checkpoints and limited escape routes. Getting in would be challenging enough. Getting out alive after eliminating Hassan and his security team would require perfect timing and flawless execution. He thought about his daughter Sophia, probably just getting home from school and asking her mother when Daddy would be home. Rodriguez had promised to attend her school play next Friday, where she would be performing as a butterfly in the third-grade production of Metamorphosis. He might not be there to see it. Rodriguez pulled into his driveway and sat in the car for a moment, staring at his modest military housing unit. Through the window, he could see Sophia's artwork taped to the refrigerator, crayon drawings of butterflies and rainbows and stick figure families. Normal things that normal children drew when their fathers weren't preparing to kill terrorists with weapons of mass destruction. His secure phone buzzed with a message from Chen, package delivered to your quarters. Study materials for Johannes van der Merwe. Memorize everything, your life depends on it. Rodriguez gathered his gear and headed inside to begin the transformation from Navy SEAL to South African arms dealer. He had 18 hours to become someone else entirely, and 3 days after that to save Monaco from quantum annihilation. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders like familiar armor. Rodriguez had spent his entire adult life carrying that weight, making decisions that ordinary people couldn't imagine. But this mission felt different. The stakes were higher, the timeline shorter, and the consequences of failure more catastrophic than anything he'd ever faced. As he opened the package containing his new identity, Rodriguez whispered a prayer for his daughter, his team, and all the innocent people who would never know how close they'd come to quantum death in the glamorous casinos of Monaco. The Casino de Monte Carlo glittered like a jewel against the Mediterranean night. Rodriguez, now perfectly transformed into Johannes van der Merwe, adjusted his platinum cufflinks and walked through the grand entrance. His South African accent was flawless, his background story memorized down to the smallest detail. 3 days of intensive preparation had turned him into someone Hassan would never suspect. The casino floor buzzed with nervous energy. Arms dealers, government officials, and private military contractors mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, their conversations conducted in hushed tones. Everyone knew why they were here, but nobody spoke about it directly. The quantum explosive auction would begin in 2 hours, giving Rodriguez precious time to locate Hassan and identify potential escape routes. He ordered an expensive whiskey at the bar and scanned the crowd through the mirror behind the bottles. Hassan sat at a corner table, surrounded by his 4-man security detail. The scientist looked confident, even arrogant, as he fielded questions from potential buyers. A metal briefcase sat on the table beside him, the same briefcase Rodriguez had seen through his scope in Afghanistan. "Quite a gathering tonight," said a familiar voice behind him. Rodriguez turned slowly, maintaining his cover identity even as his blood turned to ice. Colonel Marcus Webb stood there, dressed in an immaculate tuxedo and smiling like a shark. His gray eyes held the same predatory intelligence Rodriguez remembered from their time serving together, but now it was focused in his direction. "Do we know each other?" Rodriguez asked in his South African accent. Webb's smile widened. "Not yet. Marcus Webb, Apex Solutions. And you must be the mysterious Mr. van der Merwe I've been hearing about. Your reputation precedes you." Rodriguez extended his hand, maintaining the charade. "Johannes van der Merwe. I specialize in unique weapons systems for discerning clients." They shook hands, and Rodriguez felt Webb's grip linger just a moment too long. The colonel was testing him, searching for any sign of recognition or deception. Rodriguez kept his expression neutral, drawing on decades of training to suppress any physical tells. "I understand you're interested in Dr. Hassan's latest innovation," Webb continued. "Fascinating technology. My clients are very interested in acquiring exclusive access." "Competition is healthy for business," Rodriguez replied. "May the best offer win." Webb chuckled, but his eyes remained cold. "Indeed. Though I should mention that Apex Solutions has certain advantages in these negotiations. We provide comprehensive security packages along with our acquisitions. Dr. Hassan appreciates that level of service." The implication was clear: Webb was telling Rodriguez to back off or face consequences. It confirmed Rodriguez's suspicion that Apex Solutions wasn't just bidding for the quantum explosive technology. They were providing Hassan's current security arrangements. "Gentlemen," announced a voice over the casino's sound system. "Dr. Hassan requests your presence in the private gaming room. The demonstration will begin shortly." Rodriguez felt his stomach drop. Demonstration. Chen had been right, Hassan wasn't just planning to sell the technology. He was planning to show it off, probably using Monaco as his testing ground. The crowd began moving toward a set of ornate double doors guarded by casino security. Rodriguez followed, keeping Webb in his peripheral vision while watching Hassan's security detail. The 4 men moved with professional precision, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. They were good, but they were focused on external dangers, not internal ones. The private gaming room was elegant and intimate, with perhaps 50 people in attendance. Hassan stood at the front beside a large television screen, the metal briefcase open on a table beside him. Inside, Rodriguez could see a device about the size of a laptop computer, its surface covered in exotic circuitry that seemed to pulse with inner light. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hassan began, his English accented but clear. "What you see before you represents the future of warfare. This quantum explosive device can generate a 5-kiloton blast equivalent using only quantum manipulation of molecular bonds. No uranium, no plutonium, no radiation signature." The audience leaned forward with interest. These people understood the implications. A weapon that delivered nuclear-level destruction without nuclear materials couldn't be detected by conventional monitoring systems. It was the perfect terrorist weapon. But words alone cannot convey the device's true capabilities, Hassan continued. Therefore, I have arranged a demonstration that will leave no doubt about its effectiveness. Rodriguez's hand moved instinctively toward his concealed pistol. He was carrying a ceramic Glock 17 that wouldn't trigger metal detectors, along with a ceramic knife hidden in his belt buckle. But Hassan's security team was too alert, and the room was too crowded. He needed a better opportunity. Hassan clicked a remote control, and the television screen displayed a map of Monaco. A red circle marked a location about 5 kilometers offshore, where a decommissioned cargo ship sat at anchor. The demonstration target is the MV Stellar Dawn, a 200-meter cargo vessel that has been prepared specifically for this test. The ship contains no personnel, but it does carry several tons of conventional explosive materials to provide a baseline for comparison. Rodriguez felt momentary relief. Hassan was planning to detonate the device offshore, not in the city. But his relief turned to horror as Hassan continued speaking. The quantum device will be triggered remotely from this location, allowing you to witness its effects in real time. However, I should mention that the weapon's blast radius has been carefully calculated to demonstrate its urban warfare applications. Hassan clicked the remote again, and the red circle on the map expanded dramatically. The new blast radius encompassed half of Monaco, including the Casino de Monte Carlo. Rodriguez realized with growing dread that Hassan wasn't planning to detonate the device offshore, he was planning to detonate it right here, in this room, with all the potential buyers present. It was the ultimate demonstration. Hassan would eliminate his competition, destroy any evidence of the technology's existence, and create a terrorist attack that would reshape global politics overnight. The man was planning to martyr himself while taking thousands of innocent lives with him. Rodriguez caught Webb's eye across the room. The former colonel was staring at Hassan with obvious alarm, apparently reaching the same conclusion. Whatever their differences, neither of them had signed up for mass suicide. Hassan was still talking, explaining the technical specifications of the quantum explosive while casually preparing to murder everyone in the room. Rodriguez realized he had perhaps minutes before the device was activated. He needed to act immediately, regardless of the consequences. He began moving through the crowd, using the other attendees as cover while closing distance to Hassan's position. The scientist's security team was focused on the presentation, their guard momentarily lowered. Rodriguez slipped the ceramic knife from his belt buckle, its razor edge hidden against his forearm. 20 feet from Hassan. 15. 10. One of the security guards noticed Rodriguez's approach and began to turn, his hand moving toward his concealed weapon. But Rodriguez was already in motion, the knife flashing out in a precise strike that severed the guard's carotid artery. The man dropped silently to the floor. The crowd suddenly realized what was happening. Screams filled the air as people dove for cover or rushed toward the exits. Hassan spun around, his finger poised over a button on his remote control. "Stop!" Hassan shouted. "Come any closer and I detonate the device immediately." Rodriguez froze, the knife still in his hand. Hassan's 3 remaining security guards had their weapons drawn, but they were afraid to shoot with their employer holding the detonator. The crowd was trapped between armed terrorists and a man with a quantum explosive device. "You are CIA," Hassan said, studying Rodriguez's face. "I recognize the tactics, if not the man himself. Did you really think you could stop me with a simple infiltration?" Rodriguez said nothing, his mind racing through options. Hassan was holding the remote control in his right hand, finger on the detonator button. The quantum device sat on the table 3 feet away, its exotic circuitry pulsing faster now, as if responding to Hassan's proximity to the trigger. "The future begins tonight," Hassan continued, his voice rising with fanatic fervor. "The old world order dies with this building, and a new age of warfare is born from its ashes. You cannot stop evolution, CIA man. You can only choose to be part of it or be destroyed by it." Rodriguez noticed movement in his peripheral vision. Webb was creeping along the wall, using the panicked crowd as cover. The former colonel had drawn a small pistol and was maneuvering for a shot at Hassan. But the angle was wrong. If Webb fired and missed, Hassan's finger would reflexively squeeze the detonator. Rodriguez made eye contact with Webb and shook his head slightly. Webb paused, understanding the silent communication. They needed a coordinated assault to neutralize Hassan without triggering the device. "You have 10 seconds to surrender," Hassan announced, "or I detonate the device and take us all to paradise together." Rodriguez's training took over. Time seemed to slow as he calculated angles, distances, and probabilities. Hassan's finger was tightening on the detonator button. The remaining security guards were shifting position to get clear shots. Webb was still too far away to be effective. Rodriguez had one chance. He threw the ceramic knife with perfect precision, the blade spinning through the air toward Hassan's right hand. At the same moment, he dove forward, his body flying toward the table holding the quantum device. The knife struck Hassan's wrist just as his finger pressed the detonator button. The remote control flew from his grasp, clattering across the floor. Rodriguez landed on the table, his hands closing around the quantum device just as its circuitry began to overload. The device was heavier than it looked, its metal surface burning hot against his palms. Warning lights flashed across its surface, and a high-pitched whine filled the air. Rodriguez could feel the quantum fields building inside the machine, preparing to tear apart every molecule within a 5-kilometer radius. He had perhaps 5 seconds before the device reached critical mass. Rodriguez ripped open the device's housing, exposing the complex circuitry within. His background in explosive ordnance disposal kicked in as he identified the primary power coupling. Without hesitation, he grabbed 2 handfuls of wiring and yanked them free from their connections. The device died instantly, its lights fading to darkness as the quantum fields collapsed harmlessly. The high-pitched whine faded to silence, leaving only the sound of panicked breathing from the crowd. Hassan's security guards were raising their weapons when Webb's pistol barked 3 times in rapid succession. 2 guards dropped immediately, while the third spun around and returned fire. Webb dove for cover behind an overturned gaming table as bullets chewed splinters from the expensive wood. Rodriguez rolled off the table and tackled Hassan, who was trying to reach a backup detonator from his jacket pocket. They struggled briefly before Rodriguez's training overwhelmed the scientist's desperation. A precise blow to Hassan's solar plexus dropped him to his knees, gasping for air. The last security guard was moving to flank Webb's position when Rodriguez's ceramic pistol materialized in his hand. 2 shots center mass put the terrorist down permanently. The room fell silent except for the terrified whimpering of arms dealers hiding behind furniture. Rodriguez zip-tied Hassan's hands and checked the quantum device one more time. The machine was completely dead, its exotic circuitry fried beyond repair. Whatever secrets Hassan had built into the weapon were gone forever. Webb emerged from behind the gaming table, his tuxedo rumpled and his pistol still drawn. He looked at Rodriguez with something that might have been respect. "Well done, Ghost," Webb said, using Rodriguez's old call sign. "Though I'm curious how long CIA has known about my real identity." Rodriguez kept his pistol trained on Webb. "Long enough." "Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for treason, arms trafficking, and conspiracy to commit terrorism." Webb laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think this ends here?" Hassan was just one scientist. There are others working on quantum explosive technology. Other buyers willing to pay any price for ultimate weapons. You've won tonight's battle, but the war is far from over. Sirens wailed in the distance as Monaco's police forces responded to reports of gunfire in the casino. Rodriguez could hear helicopters approaching, probably his extraction team, though it might also be more of Webb's people. "Maybe," Rodriguez said. "But tonight, Monaco is safe. Tonight, thousands of innocent people get to go home to their families. Sometimes that has to be enough." Hassan stirred on the floor, blood trickling from his nose. Rodriguez knelt beside the terrorist scientist and leaned close to his ear. "It's done," Rodriguez whispered, echoing the mission's code phrase. "Your quantum explosive program is finished. The technology dies with you." Hassan's eyes widened with understanding, then closed as unconsciousness took him. The man who had dreamed of reshaping warfare with exotic physics would spend the rest of his life in a CIA black site, his knowledge safely contained. Webb lowered his pistol and smiled grimly. I suppose this means Apex Solutions will need to find new employment opportunities. The private military business isn't what it used to be. Rodriguez heard boots in the corridor outside. His extraction team was arriving. In a few minutes, Hassan would be spirited away to face enhanced interrogation, Webb would disappear into federal custody, and the quantum explosive device would be analyzed by American scientists before being destroyed. The arms dealers in the room would return to their usual business of conventional weapons trafficking. The government officials would file reports that would disappear into classified archives. The private military contractors would look for other exotic technologies to acquire and exploit. But, tonight, Rodriguez had prevented quantum terrorism from becoming reality. Tonight, he had pulled the trigger on the future and steered it away from catastrophe. As his extraction team secured the room, Rodriguez thought about his daughter Sofia and her school play about metamorphosis. Sometimes the greatest transformations happened in single moments, when one person made one decision that changed everything. Rodriguez had made that decision, and the world would never know how close it had come to quantum apocalypse in the glittering casinos of Monaco. The future, for now, remained safely in the hands of those sworn to protect it. The mission was complete. Hassan was neutralized. The quantum explosive technology was destroyed. Rodriguez holstered his pistol and walked toward his extraction team, leaving the wreckage of Hassan's ambitions scattered across the casino floor. Tomorrow there would be debriefings and reports and planning for whatever threat emerged next. But tonight, Captain Marcus Ghost Rodriguez was going home to his daughter's butterfly drawings and the simple promise that some futures were worth fighting for. "It's done," he whispered to himself, and meant it.